please.
Thanks. Bonjour. I have to apologize. My presentation's in English, but thank you firstly for inviting me to present today. I'm presenting two of my projects. They're kind of connected in the same vision. They're called Future Farm and then Nanotopia. Just to introduce myself a little bit in my background, I'm originally from sculpture, and then I also use design discourses in my work quite a lot. I'd like to perhaps look at science and technology. I'm fascinated by how they can really refocus what we may see ourselves as being human or biologically our beings. And I'm going to start off perhaps in some key points that kind of inform my work and my ideas. So I'll start off with here. I am absolutely fascinated by one ratio, one statistic about ourselves that perhaps metagenomics is showing us more and more. And that is, for every one human cell we have in the body, we have 10 others that are using us as a habitat, either inside or outside of us, belonging to the realms of bacteria, viruses, fungus, or other microbes. For me, it just amazes me that to be human, paradoxically, is to be the seething conglomeration of all of this stuff, and that's very much this new perception of health. I've picked these three images here just to illustrate this. So we have an evolutionary heritage with the werewolf syndrome, hypertrichosis at the end. Infused throughout all of our cells in our body, we have mitochondria that are powering our cells, which were once an ancient bacterial form. And then we live alongside all these parasites that live on and inside us. And I've been working and discussing ideas with a couple of scientists in the UK. Geoffrey Nicholson from Imperial College, and some research done in Bristol and in Nottingham, looking at our relationship with parasites and how they benefit our health. I just want to move on to a second area that's really important in terms of the visions that I'm looking at in terms of nanotechnology. I grew up on a farm in the fens of Cambridgeshire, and as a child, I had warts on my hands, as I'm sure a lot of children have. Here's some reenactments of where they were on my hands. There we go. When going to the doctor, they told me that perhaps I could have caught those human papillomavirus from the horses or cows that I live alongside. For me at the time, it was a real moment of clarification that I am one of the same as these things I'm living alongside, and we exchange things all the time. So for me, when I'm starting to think about nanotechnology and stem cell technology and other sciences that I'm really interested in, I think it's really important that I make these connections back to what I fundamentally have in my heritage, in my background. And then moving forward, as an artist, as a designer, I was fascinated to look back to see how I modified my clothing to deal with these viruses and these warts, and also the folklore that surrounds them. So I was told a number of ways to get rid of them, either strapping potatoes to the warts or urinating on warts as well, and a whole spectrum. And for me, this really fleshes out this bigger picture of how we relate to perhaps science, technology, and where it comes into our everyday, and the social and cultural impact of these technologies. And again, finally, just moving on, how, again, now biotherapies here, maggots, are coming back into our healthcare. In the UK, in the Parliament, we recently had a review on bringing back, rolling out maggot therapy in hospitals, because they saved the NHS, our National Health Service, up to, I think it was £9 million in terms of getting patients out of hospital quicker. So I'm moving on now to through the development of my project, Nanotopia, I was talking with Richard Jones, who is working at Sheffield University, and he's the author of this book, Soft Machines, Nanotechnology and Life. His vision of nanotechnology that I found hugely inspiring was this convergence with living systems, particularly viruses, as we heard this morning, and this idea of self-assembly and self-reproducing. For me, when this technology enters into the same fabrication as ourselves, my work is very speculative as well, I must point out now, and I really like to bring these elements and layers to really imagine what the social, cultural, and human impact could be of these quite abstract concepts. So for me, soft machines was this point of where I'm coming from my background, when technology is entering the same biological makeup as us and we have an interface with it, what could happen? And I really love the messiness of what it is to be human. So once technology leaves the research lab and enters into the everyday domestic environment, how we might divert it, or it might be used in very different ways. And that was the starting point for this. So Future Farm is the early development. So I thought about this in a spectrum leading up to where it might be in nanotechnology. And the messiness. So as transplantations are becoming easier, more reliable, I was very interested in transplant tourism, where people go to other people on a social economic scale to perhaps buy organs, and that's completely facilitated by the ease it is that perhaps it exists now to exchange organs with someone else. So, for instance, clinical trials, blood, either legal or illegal sales of organs, human hair coming from places like India to be put onto people in the Western world, and yeah, as you can see here. So that's kind of the background, fleshing out where it goes from into Future Farm. At the time I was developing this in the States, I think, research was looking into how stem cell technology, adult stem cells, a huge speculation of it becoming the new kind of holy grail, I guess. Particularly finding adipose tissue, fat tissue, is a plentiful supply of adult stem cells, and at the time adult stem cells was just going into them becoming quite similar in what they can do to embryonic stem cells with tweaking. So from that point on, looking at the body farm industry, I was just very fascinated by how the body can be used in terms of economics. And sources of income, just as it already is being done now with selling hair or organs. What things like stem cell technology then facilitates extra opportunities for the body. And also perhaps this non-utopian idea of what it's intended to do, but also how it's diverted by just being human and human needs. And that stem cell technology and clinical trials moves into Nanotopia. And Nanotopia is this imagined world of where soft machines, as Richard Jones talks about, where viruses are fused with nanotechnology to become useful or products. And again, how the body becomes a grow bag almost. Richard Jones talks about Brownian motion, about how